Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another Axel 72 video, and in today's video I'm going to be giving my reaction to Kamaru Usman winning via unanimous decision versus Joaquin Buckley. And so if you are new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so, like the video if you do indeed like the video, and let's get straight into this. So it was the return to form for Kamaru Usman after over a year out. It was a good showing from him, and a dominant showing where he pretty much did just maul Joaquin Buckley for the majority of the fight. I got my prediction wrong, like many others did. A lot of people were thinking that Buckley would be able to get Usman out of there. The momentum that Buckley had and the power that he carries and the way that he throws his shots, he was expected, I suppose, to an extent, to get him out of there. And I think he even came in as the favourite, which is, of course, surprising, saying that Usman, what he's achieved in his career and the fact that, yes, he's had over a year out, but he was in last time against Khamzat Chimaev, which I touched upon in my prediction video, when coming in on 2 weeks' notice against Chimaev and giving Chimaev arguably his toughest test yet. And he's a great fighter. He's one of my favourite fighters. I mean, a guy who had fought in his reign as welterweight champion some real kind of just tough guys and had some really great moments in that reign as a champion. And I mean, he really did showcase that he still has quite a lot left to give in this fight. Of course, he was coming off 3 losses, but there were 3 losses against the highest, realistically, competitors in the welterweight division. Yes, one of them was a devastating knockout, but the other 2 wasn't. And so you kind of have to look at it and go, it's not like Volkanovski when he came back. Yes, he fought against the highest guys, but he was coming off multiple stoppages, or it wasn't quite like that. It was something a bit different. It was somebody who was just not been able to kind of do enough to be able to win, and everybody still expected Joaquin Buckley to win, but Usman, like I say, dominated arguably 4 out of the 5 rounds. Buckley just couldn't get off his back, realistically. I mean, Usman just out wrestled him continuously, and it's kind of, I suppose, created a little bit of an argument of, was Usman's takedown timing just really good? I mean, he's always had very good wrestling, and I think it's been always quite underrated. I think he is a very well-rounded fighter, like I touched upon, but is Buckley's takedown defense bad? Was that just a negative that perhaps he should have maybe trained upon a bit more? Maybe he just wasn't prepared for it as well, or I'm not entirely sure what the reason was why he was just continually just getting taken down. Was it, like I say, just Usman being too good with his timing, or bad takedown defense from Buckley? I mean, when you look at his performance against Covington, his takedown defense looked really good in that, but Covington seemingly was going in for a takedown way too far out and just kind of doing it as a last gasp, kind of just hope that he was going to be able to reach and hope that he'd be able to get Buckley down to the ground. And Buckley was just able to kind of lean onto him and just stop him from having any sort of success going for takedowns, Covington. And so maybe Covington's wrestling was just very bad. I mean, like I say, he did seemingly was just going for kind of hopeless takedowns, but Usman wasn't doing that. Usman really timed his takedowns and was really going through the guy, going through Buckley to push him up into the fence when he was going for his takedowns. And, it wasn't just your defensive wrestling where he was going for just control time and ground time. He was offensively wrestling. It was a nice showing where he was able to cut open Buckley, going with the elbows and landing well, good ground and pound, and consistently was doing that throughout the rounds. And the one round in which Buckley seemingly won, which was that 5th round, which is quite surprising, to be completely honest, because everybody after the Usman Chimaev fight was saying if the fight went 5 rounds, then Usman probably would have been able to win. But nobody was kind of expecting that Buckley would be able to be the guy landing the better shots and doing the better work in the 5th round. I believe that was possibly one of the first times he'd gone up to that 5th round, and Buckley was outstriking him in that 5th round and did land a few shots which did test the chin of Usman. And credit to Usman to showcase that he still has a good chin and can still take good shots. And inevitably, like I say, it was a very good win for him. He was clearly very emotional post-fight, which is expected. He said he was fighting a lot of demons in the kind of timeout in which he had. Obviously, it seemingly was the case that he had a lot of injuries and had to deal with that, and there's just things creeping in, and I suppose there were probably doubts in his mind that he would ever be able to get back to a winning position, and it was no surprise that it was an emotional time for him. And I mean, what he said in his post-fight press conference, and it was just not really what I wanted to hear him say. I mean, he was saying that he wanted a title shot, which was, I suppose if anybody's going to say it in the welterweight division, then maybe you could argue deserves it, it would be an Usman, just because of the fact of him having the reign in which he had as a world champion. But you just don't go off 3 back-to-back losses, then a win, then a title defense, unless somehow you're Alexander Volkanovski. But still, I think there is, with the way that the welterweight division is such a mess at the moment, I just don't see Usman getting an opportunity. I think Rakhmonov, yes, perhaps doesn't deserve the opportunity crazily amount because he beaten Ian Gary and it wasn't a crazily good performance, but he was there ready waiting. He was meant to have the world title opportunity, and so he probably will get it after the JDM and Islam fight. So we'll have to wait and see who wins that, what they want to do with the title, if Islam wins it and then maybe wants to move back down again, or if he wants to bring new fighters up into the welterweight division, the likes of a Topuria or an Oliveira. It's really going to be interesting to see. There may have to be some sort of an interim title made for the welterweight division, like I said, depending on what happens if Islam does win the title. And so I think the Usman-Bilal fight is the fight to make. Of course, there is a bit of a beef between the two of them. Bilal came on Usman's podcast, and from what Henry Cejudo was saying, there was a back and forth, and things seemingly got a bit heated. They haven't released the podcast, but hopefully, if they do kind of schedule a fight between the two of them, maybe they'll release that footage, and it will be interesting to see. I mean, Usman got questioned about Bilal. He did the whole kind of "who is he" type thing as the joke in that aspect, and I still think that fight probably will happen next. I think it makes sense. I think put Bilal against Usman. I think put Rakhmonov, perhaps if he wants to fight, put him against Brady. If not, put Gary against Brady, and then just wait and see what happens with the Makhachev JDM fights. And I think that's probably the best way to play out things in the welterweight division at the moment. And again, have to wait and see if 2025 can carry on being the year of comebacks. I mean, if Usman can get another fight in maybe this year, maybe he could get another win and then maybe get in line for a world title shot. If not, maybe a Henry Cejudo win could be a good win as a 2025 year of the comebacks. Have to wait and see. But something that was interesting to see was that Ngannou was at the fight. He was at the weigh-in for Usman, and then he was at the fight as well. The UFC now seemingly willing to at least showcase on their screens that Ngannou is in the arena and stuff like that. So that's, I suppose, one thing to see, and maybe that does mean that there is some sort of kind of possibility that we can see Ngannou fight on the UFC again. Maybe. I think it would be great to see, and I think if John Jones is more willing to fight Ngannou, then let that happen. I mean, realistically, if it's not going to be Aspinall, then at least the fans will accept the Ngannou fight without calling John Jones too much of a duck or anything like that. And so, I mean, Jones said that he's willing to fight Ngannou. If he now goes on to back out of that fight, if Ngannou does have rejoined the UFC, then then it's just really bad luck on John Jones. And I mean, I think Ngannou still has one more fight with the PFL, so maybe he's going to be wanting or having to take that. Maybe he'll fight some random contender there, and then he'll go on to fight maybe in the UFC again, or perhaps the UFC might get working with the PFL. But, these are all just hypothetical things up in the air at the moment. To speak about a couple of the other fights that were on this card, it wasn't an amazing card, but there was a few moments on it. I mean, Rose Namajunas won via unanimous decision versus Miranda Maverick. Seemingly quite a high-action fight. Rose landed a couple, dropped Maverick, I believe, in the third round with a nice shot. And other than that, just put in some good wrestling, got in good wrestling positions, was dominant on the ground in that way, and looked like not a vintage performance from Namajunas, but still a good performance. And against an up-and-coming contender, you respect her for giving a name like that a chance. And Namajunas has showcased that she's not out of the division yet. I think she can be one of the more skilled fighters in the division when she wants to be. But I think the flyweight division is full of some actual really good talent at the moment. And of course, we have Natalie Silva in line, seemingly to fight Shevchenko if Shevchenko doesn't go on to fight Zhang Weili possibly next. So, I mean, for Rose Namajunas, of course, she's coming off the loss versus Blanchfield. Blanchfield was meant to fight Barber, so that probably will still happen at some point. So there probably won't be a rematch for Namajunas there. She called out Grasso. I think that's a good fight. Fioro could be a good fight as well. Of course, two fighters coming off defeats and, you know, against the high-level fighters. She could just easily slot in against one of them. And so, yeah, her name is still definitely in and about in the division. Another fight in which I wanted to touch upon was Raoni Barcelos versus Cody Garbrandt. Raoni Barcelos won via unanimous decision and inevitably was just again doing a bit more. He was landing some nice clean shots with his boxing. Cody Garbrandt was landing perhaps some of the faster shots, but Barcelos was landing the cleanest shots and then also being able to follow upon it with the wrestling again as well. Garbrandt did seemingly slow down in that second round, which was probably what cost him a bit. Garbrandt, I mean, he's had so much hype in his career, especially, you know, when he was at the height of his career, but that was 10 years ago, if not 2016. So it is a while ago now, and you look at him now and he is just a bit of a shadow of the fighter that he once was. I mean, he's not that old. I think he's 32, 33, something like that. So he's really not that old. I mean, Barcelos was 38, I think, coming into this fight. But Barcelos was coming off the good upset win versus Peyton Talbot, which was one of the biggest upsets you can have. And now he's riding that high and he's coming in to fight Cody Garbrandt. I think it was a tough fight. I mean, Garbrandt's always taken these tough fights, but he's gotten 3 wins in his last 10 fights, and it's not the best of looks. Should he retire? Probably, but if he wants to carry on fighting and he's happy fighting on these lower parts of cards, maybe he could get a win against a bit of lower opposition than Barcelos. But when you're looking lower than Barcelos, you're not going to really be up on the cards at all. You know, you're going to be really low in the prelims. So if he wants to carry on doing that, then I'm sure why not let him. Another fight in which I wanted to touch upon, which was just a strange moment, was the Paul Craig no contest versus Rodolfo Bollato. This was a remade fight, and I kind of guess the UFC are glad that they did, because it at least created a bit of entertainment for that fight. I mean, Bollato just seemingly, well, Paul Craig kicked him to the head when he was a grounded opponent. That's an illegal strike. Bollato kind of started to fall back, looked at the ref, saw that the ref was kind of he kind of realised that it was an illegal blow and the ref was getting involved. Then he kind of leant back, he went back even more, seemingly banged his head a bit on the canvas. Was that enough to have knocked him out? Because he seemingly just went flat out at that point. Then he suddenly kind of spazzed back into being in the room and being aware, but then he wasn't aware. He was trying to grapple with the ref and trying to make it out as though he was not conscious of what was going on. It was weird. Was he faking? A lot of people were saying Oscar-worthy performance. Perhaps it was. It was weird, and we probably will see a rematch of that at some point. And then just the statement victory. There's always one big statement knockout in any UFC card, and that was from Malcolm Wellmaker, getting a statement knockout in round 1 versus Chris Moutinho. Moutinho was on a good run before this. Of course, when he was last in the UFC, he had 2 knockout defeats, of course, one being versus Sean O'Malley. Then he went away, fought 5 times outside of the UFC in different promotions, got a 5-fight win streak of all stoppages, has come back, showcased no head movement whatsoever, and then got caught with a very good shot by Wellmaker, which was impressive to see. Faked really well with the kick. It was kind of a Muay Thai fake to try and throw the kick and then not, and then come round with the check hook. He was throwing that hook really nicely throughout the fight. I think he does carry a lot of power. It will be interesting to see when he gets progressed up how he deals with if he faces another power puncher, because he does kind of stand face on and squares up his feet quite often when he's striking. He also drops his hands quite a bit as well, so it wouldn't surprise me if he gets caught at some point. But he's having these development fights, he's improving fights. That's going to really help boost his name, at least with a win like that, and inevitably was a very good knockout win. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you did, like the video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.